We're here with Mark Murphy from the Providence Business News, who is a weekly guest here on Coffee Break with Frank and Friends. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Artie.
You guys have an interesting new article talking about employment in the area and how there are more jobs available in the lower end and upper end of the job market and maybe not so much in the middle. So tell us about that.
Well, I think it mirrors the national trends, as we've seen in the last couple of decades, is that the sort of the middle class seems to be hollowing out. You know, you have at the upper end, I think Google and Facebook and all the rest of them, people are doing quite well. But you have a lot of the lower end jobs are, you know, there are a lot of them. And in fact, but they're not paying all that well. So you have the movement for a higher minimum wage. But what's happened is the middle, they just haven't seen the growth that you'd like to see.
So give me some examples of what are some of the kind of lower paying jobs and upper paying jobs locally. Is that something that you guys touched upon?
Well, yeah, locally you think about the hospitality and restaurant business. So, you know, hotel workers, people working at restaurants, they really aren't paid that well. Some of that has to do with seasonality. You know, Rhode Island is not a 12-month-a-year resort business. It's a very much seasonal. So a lot of those folks, they might be part-time jobs to begin with, but then they're also just sort of seasonal. On the high end, you have more of these sort of tech jobs, and some of them have been growing recently. You have biotech, you have the Johnson & Johnson, GE Digital, although that may be going a little bit not quite so good. You have Virgin Pulse, which is very much a tech job, Upserve. So those are growing, although not dramatically so. But what you've really been missing are construction jobs and manufacturing jobs. And those, the manufacturing seems pretty stable now, but it's certainly not what it used to be. And those are good paying working class jobs. Construction is down, although now with the bond for school construction and the roadworks program for roads, you're going to see more of those jobs, but it's still not enough to kind of fill in what Rhode Island needs.
You talk about tough sledding for kind of middle paying jobs, but there are some examples of some pretty good industries locally that are middle paying jobs that are doing well.
Well, yeah, those are, like I said, and part of this story is we look back and what's happened, but we're taking DLT, the Department of Labor and Training, projections going forward. And so they do see growth in those construction and manufacturing jobs. The issue for Rhode Island is the mix of jobs has always been not quite ideal, and going forward it doesn't get much better. So you have some areas that are going to be okay, but a lot of the problem is the growth is actually in those lower paying jobs, even more than the high paying jobs, and that creates an economy that is hit by recessions faster and gets out of recessions slower than a lot of other states compared with, say, Massachusetts.
Unemployment numbers just came out for both Mass and Rhode Island, and good news overall. So how does that compare to the story that you're talking about? Well,
it means that a lot of people are working, but we think that there are a lot of people who'd like to be working better jobs, or working. A lot of these people who are working might have part-time jobs. So the employment picture is not quite as good as it could be. So even though it's low unemployment, you haven't seen, for instance, the labor force grow much, and that's an issue for a lot of employers. They can't find workers in a lot of these, especially in these middle-paying jobs, and that's one of the issues for Rhode Island, is its population isn't growing, its labor force isn't growing, and again, that sort of puts a limit on growth.
You can check out that article with all the colorful charts and lots of information at pbn.com. Mark Murphy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Artie.